All right, it's been a little while since we've talked Spanish football on a Thursday night, but there was a Clasico last night. Barcelona and Real Madrid met in the Copa del Rey. They're going to meet in La Liga in a couple of weeks, and it's one of the more exciting La Liga seasons of recent times. It's very tight at the top. To talk about it, we're joined by Phil Kitromilides, who is from the Spanish Football Podcast and a La Liga commentator. Evening, Phil.
Good evening.
Before we get into what's actually happening in La Liga and all the excitement around it this season, it feels like we're missing out because there was a Clasico last night, and I came into the office today, I mentioned it to a couple of people, neither of whom had even heard it was on, and I myself completely forgot about it. It is a strange situation in the Copa del Rey anyways, where the draw takes place about 4 days before the game actually happens, so it's not like there's much time for any build-up. But we've had a major shift this year with the rights, where it moved off Sky, where it had been for probably 2 decades at this stage, moved to 11 Sports, where really it hasn't been any sort of success. We've seen recently that 11 Sports have given up the rights for Serie A. They have kept on La Liga, but it feels as though it's been forgotten about in this part of the world. Is that your sense?
Yeah, it feels like it was a bit of a short-sighted deal from La Liga to perhaps leave Sky and go with 11 Sports. I think from what I've understood, 11 Sports offered fractionally more money than Sky Sports, and La Liga said, right, that's fine, let's go with that, and we'll take it off terrestrial TV. Well, we'll take it off TV and go straight onto streaming. It is a little bit short-sighted because the streaming figures for 11 Sports are really very low. I think from what I saw was about 50,000 people have signed up. 50,000 people. It's not a lot of people, particularly when you've got a game as big as a Clasico. And yeah, I mean, I host the Spanish Football Podcast. One of our biggest markets is in Ireland. I mean, there is an interest in football, and there is an interest in Spanish football, and a lot of people have found it difficult to watch. Obviously, the people that listen to our podcast, which is specifically about Spanish football, are big fans. Yeah, they have signed up.
The subscription has risen dramatically over that time. Yeah.
But like the word short-sighted is correct here, because when you look at what La Liga had been planning last summer and potentially playing Barcelona and Girona overseas in America, it seems as though there is a wish there to grow the game worldwide, that there's a understanding that to make La Liga, if they want to make it the biggest league in the world as well as being the best league in the world, they need to make sure it is a worldwide game. Why then do you think that they came to this decision? Was it simply a case of they didn't overly think it, there was a little bit more money on offer?
Yes, I think it's that. I think also they also viewed this, right, we're going to take it only streaming, in their desire to be forward-thinking and the desire to maybe reach out to the rest of the world. They thought, right, streaming is the future, we're going to go for streaming, and that's it. And it's a big jump to go from having almost every game on TV. I think Sky were covering almost every game. If it wasn't live, then, behind the red button, you could watch more or less every match on TV. To take it completely off TV and go just on streaming, it's a really big step. So while streaming probably is the future for live sports, terrestrial TV, analog TV, as we know it, is probably a dying market, if you like. But to do it like this, again, it wasn't particularly well thought out. It was a little bit short-sighted, a little bit like their idea to take a La Liga game to Miami as well. But don't get me started on that, because that's a whole different ballgame.
So looking at La Liga this season, and particularly focusing on the Clasico last night in Barcelona and Real Madrid, the one thing I think we're probably in agreement, Kevin, from watching La Liga this season, while it's exciting, quality-wise compared to where it was 3, 4, 5 years ago, doesn't seem to be anywhere near the same level. Would that be fair enough?
Yeah, I mean, Spanish football pays my mortgage, so I probably shouldn't be saying this. But yeah, the quality and the blockbuster aspect of it, certainly of a Clasico, I think it has diminished. And I think a little bit unfairly, perhaps on Spanish radio last night, I heard someone saying, we've gone from Cristiano and Messi to Vinicius and Malcolm, which is a little bit less blockbuster, if you like. Perhaps a little bit unfair. Obviously, Messi came on in the second half last night. There was still Gareth Bale who came on, Karim Benzema, big world stars. But yeah, you've lost that wow factor, A, because Cristiano Ronaldo's gone, and B, because Messi is getting older. He's still absolutely brilliant, but he missed the first Clasico this season because of injury. He was only a substitute last night because of injury. He's getting a little bit older, and he is picking up these injuries a little bit more. So it's probable that he's going to miss more Clásicos in the future. Whereas in the past, one of the incredible things about Messi and Ronaldo, not just their ability to play football, but their ability to not get injured. I mean, they played every single game, and that increased the awareness and the thirst for Clásicos. And a Clásico without Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, it's a diminished affair, certainly in terms of a worldwide spectacle, and certainly for your casual La Liga fan who might dip in and think, it's a Clásico, let's see what's going on. There's no Messi and there's definitely no Ronaldo, then it is a little bit more diminished.
Phil, it's still the usual suspects at the top of the table. Atletico there and thereabouts as well. It is Atletico against Real this weekend as well. Is there a serious, given what Atletico did last summer with the investment, even keeping hold of Griezmann and one or two others as well, is there a thought that this could be the year again when they could actually topple the big two at the top of the Liga?
Yeah, I really fancied Atletico at the start of the season, not just in La Liga, but also in the Champions League as well. And I also host a betting podcast as well, a Champions League betting podcast. And my bet for the season was Atletico Madrid to win the Champions League. There was something like 16-20 to 1 at the start of the season. And I thought that's an incredible price for a team that has reached 2 finals in the last 5 years. They've been in the semi-finals, they've been in the quarterfinals, and they're hosting the Champions League this season as well. So they are really motivated to get to the latter stages. They've got their most expensively assembled squad ever. They've got Antoine Griezmann. They've got a manager who knows exactly what he wants from his players. They're a well-drilled unit. They've got the best goalkeeper in the world for me in Jan Oblak. So I was thinking this season, the Champions League and La Liga are real possible objectives for Atletico. They lost away at Real Betis last weekend, and they had a real chance to cut the gap to Barcelona. It would have been 3 points if they'd won, but they went and lost, and that was a bit of a blow for them. So coming into this Madrid derby, they want to be bouncing back for them. But it's not over yet. I mean, it's been possibly the most competitive La Liga season that I can remember in the last 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Teams are dropping points all over the place, and they're going to be more points dropped as well. So while Barcelona, they're in a really good position, it's not done yet.
They were on a great run before that Betis game. Alvaro Morata played at the weekend. He'd been struggling at Chelsea. How was he at the weekend in that Betis match?
Yeah, I mean, they hadn't lost in 18 games and they lose on his debut, so it's not the kind of impact that he would have wanted to have. He looked a little bit quiet, he looked a little bit timid. He should have had a penalty, by the way, and there was a big uproar. The fact that we've got VAR here, video assistant referee, and there was a more or less clear-looking foul on him in the penalty area, which wasn't given. So that polemic over that penalty not given possibly overshadowed a little bit of what they call in Spain a discreet performance from Alvaro Morata, who he's finding his feet. It's a new team. He'll have to understand his teammates, but it's difficult to play a centre forward in Atletico Madrid. Over the years, since Diego Costa first moved to Chelsea, they've had a number of players come in and try and replace him, and it has been there's a long list of players that have come in and have not necessarily succeeded. I mean, I don't want to use the word fail, but they've certainly not succeeded. So it's not an easy task that he's been set, Alvaro Morata, and big expectations coming back to his hometown as well, going back to his first club. I mean, before he joined Real Madrid at age 15, he was a ball boy at Atletico Madrid. He was an Atletico Madrid fan as a kid, so there is a lot of expectations on him. And that first game, he looked a little bit timid.
So heading into the Madrid derby on Saturday, it's a 3:15 start time at the Wanda. Atletico against Real. Atletico start that game 6 points behind Barcelona. Real 8 points. It's got a little bit quiet at Real after such a ridiculous start to the season with Lopetegui and the way it all fell apart. Filling the gap of Ronaldo, though, like Benzema seems to be having one of his better seasons. He's contributing, but you mentioned somebody like Vinicius, who's still only 18. Are we looking at somebody who can make an impact over the next 6 months in the Champions League, in the Liga? Or are you looking at somebody that they're just putting way too much pressure on at far too young an age?
Well, they're putting a lot of pressure on him. They are, but I think the fans they need someone. They need someone to latch onto, and they have latched onto Vinicius. And in truth, I mean, he's got a lot of aspects to his game which excite fans. He's the kind of player that attacks defences. He runs at defences. Defenders don't know what he's going to do. The fans don't know what he's going to do. Sometimes it doesn't look like Vinicius knows what he's going to do, but he has the ability to unsettle defences, and he's a really exciting player. He needs to work on his finishing. He needs to work on his decision making, but he is 18. I mean, he's a teenager. He's literally a teenager. He turned 18 last July, just before he moved here. So there's a long way for him to go. In terms of replacing Cristiano Ronaldo, I guess that would be the long-term aim for the club, to have someone come in and try and replace Cristiano Ronaldo, but it's very, very difficult. And I think the idea from Real Madrid fans is that selling Cristiano Ronaldo this summer for 100 million euros, so for more money than they bought him for 10 years ago, that's not a bad deal. It wasn't a bad bit of business at all. It was the lack of a replacement, not ready-made replacement, you can't replace him, but someone coming in with the idea of replacing him.
Does that not make that a bad bit of business, though? You've sold the irreplaceable.
Well, I mean, he's not necessarily replaceable. I think, if they brought someone in like Eden Hazard and he'd come into the team and done well and scored goals, then that might have made Real Madrid fans forget Cristiano Ronaldo a little bit more. I think the deal alone, it's not a bad bit of business, but okay, if you don't have someone to replace Cristiano Ronaldo, then it looks a little bit more questionable.
Yeah, I think that when you look at the squad though as well, there still is that core of that 4 and 5 Champions Leagues, or 3 and 4 was it? It is 4 and 5.
4 and 5,
yeah.
4 and 5,
yeah. You see that, and given last season that La Liga was gone for them by Christmas as it was last year, they're still in the hunt, I suppose, within that. Is it still the feeling that the second half of the season is when Real Madrid really come good and they can actually kick on and have a serious go at the Champions League again?
Yes, absolutely. That is very much the feeling here in Madrid, and we've seen it in the last few seasons as well. They've started winning games. Before last night's Clasico, they'd won 5 games in a row. And that was their best run for a year. They hadn't won 5 games in a row since March last year. They do always tend to come good around this time. And it's even questions about injuries as well. For the first time all season, Solari's got a fully fit squad in February with Champions League returning just round the corner. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it just does seem to happen for Real Madrid about this time. They get to February and they kick on. And they've got such good players and such a talented squad and such an experienced squad as well now that they know what they have to do to win the Champions League, certainly the Champions League. In La Liga, they're 8 points behind Barcelona. They've got the head-to-head difference of 5-1. So that means essentially it's 9 points. It's a long, long way to go in La Liga, but in the Champions League, don't discount it.
It's a monumental week ahead then for Solari, you feel, with that Madrid derby, and then they play this brilliantly exciting young Ajax team in the Champions League. Questions then consistently over how long he's going to survive in the job, and one of the names that's been possibly linked with taking over in the summer is Quique Setién, who's in charge of Real Betis at the moment. They're involved in the Europa League knockout stages. They're 6th in La Liga at the moment. What is it about him that people feel that he might well be a potential Real Madrid manager?
Well, I think people like Quique Setién for a number of reasons, not least the football that his teams play. And it's a very, very admirable brand of football. He has an idea and he sticks to it and he does not deviate from it and he's almost messianical about it. But we play the ball out from the back. The ball is kept on the floor. We play it out from the back, and that is never going to change in a 3-5-2 formation, and that is how we play. And it's very attractive. The problem that Real Betis have had this season is they've had a lack of goals, and they've had huge amounts of possession. Only Barcelona have had more possession than them in La Liga, but they're not one of the top scoring sides in La Liga. So they've had a lot of the ball, but they haven't necessarily been able to do much with it. They need a striker. They were looking for a striker in January. They didn't manage to get who they were looking for. They brought in Jesse Rodriguez on loan. You might remember him formerly of Real Madrid fame and on loan currently from Paris Saint-Germain, but they didn't get the striker they were looking for. But yeah, that's what's missing from a Real Betis side, a killer, as they say in Spain, in front of goal. And they could be higher up the table even because they've dropped points because of that lack of goal.
I think Setién is a self-confessed Johan Cruyff obsessive, and the way you talk about the style of football there, about playing it out from the back, it's more a Barcelona style of football. How would that go down in Madrid?
Well, listen, I mean, Real Madrid fans and Real Madrid like good football. They like winning though as well. So that is also, it has to be. You have to play well and you have to win well as well. Vicente Del Bosque was the manager of Real Madrid. He won the league in 2002 and he got sacked. It's not just about winning as well. You have to do it with a certain style. So I must say, I mean, Quique Setién to Real Madrid is not a story that has been around here in Spain that much. He's been much more linked with a possible move to Barcelona. In fact, he actually said, I would have cut off my little finger to play with Johan Cruyff I'll play under Johan Cruyff and the Dream Team, and that kind of soundbite went down quite well in Barcelona. He was saying the right things. That was after, of course, Real Betis went to the Camp Nou and beat Barcelona 4-3 in La Liga a couple of months ago, the first team to win a league game there in 2 years.
Do you think Solari will be there at the start of next season at Real Madrid?
Listen, I mean, I am the host of the Spanish Football Podcast, but my day job is also working for Real Madrid TV, so I probably shouldn't speculate too much.
Right, sorry.
I mean, he has got a contract until 2021, so let's see. I mean, he's doing all right. So.
You don't want to test Real Madrid's ability to honour a contract.
He's nailed on. Yeah.
Just before we leave Betis, then, and what they're doing this season, because I covered them in the Europa League before Christmas, and Setien's managed to pull together a good, strong squad from taking advantage of what was going on at Sporting and getting William Carvalho in the midfield. Giovanni Lo Celso arrived from Paris Saint-Germain. He's been very impressive. But the name that stands out when you look at the team is still Sergio Canales, who was the boy wonder of Spanish football when he was 18, 19. He's 27 now, Sergio Canales, playing at a good level, but never actually played for the Spanish international team. How do people look at Canales in Spain? Is it of a wasted talent, or what's the general sense around them?
The thing is, Sergio Canales is, as you say, a hugely talented player who has had incredible misfortune with injuries. He's had 3 cruciate ligament knee injuries, 3. And to be able to bounce back now and to see him playing absolutely brilliantly, I think there's a general sense that people are really happy for him, because this is someone who, as we said, has had 3 potentially career, if not threatening, then really deviating injuries, and he's managed to bounce back from them. And he's a incredibly talented player who plays in a position where Spain have a lot of incredibly talented players. But I think Luis Enrique absolutely has to put him in the next Spain squad, and there is generally a feeling that he is going to be in that next Spain squad, because at the moment he's probably the best Spanish midfielder in Spain at the moment, the way he's been playing, and it's been really pleasing to see him. I can't sort of stress that enough. People with Canales, there's just been this general feeling that, oh, what a talent, but he's just been so unlucky, and to see him playing really well now, it's really gratifying.
Phil, great stuff. Hopefully we didn't get you sacked from any of your jobs.
Fingers crossed.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Phil Kitromilides there from the Spanish Football Podcast and a commentator on La Liga. We'll take a quick break.